Well, hey, Resonate is Pastor Curtis, and hope you're enjoying this beautiful week we're having here in Minnesota. If you're like me, though, this week has been a little crazy on a lot of fronts. Everything you see in the news is about our nation and the election and who the new leader is going to be. And then you throw in some unrest around the world and wars that are happening around the world. And wow, it's very, very difficult to not feel like everything is just kind of closing in and to not have your focus on everything that's happening out there in the world, around the world. And I was struck last week in last week's message that Matt gave. That was a great message, by the way. The Apostle Paul, as he's talking to us, to Christians, about what we should concern ourselves with and who we should concern ourselves with, he said, let me read it to you here. He was talking about he had written to them to say not to associate with sexually immoral people. And I think Paul kind of gives a little joke here. He said, I wasn't talking about people who are not in the church, who are immoral or greedy or swindlers. I'm not saying don't associate with them. He said, if that was the case, you'd have to leave the world. What a funny kind of humorous statement. But later on he says, what business is it of mine to judge those who are outside the church? And there, Paul's making this distinction between the spiritual realm and the physical realm, the church and the world, but the physical versus the spiritual. And he's very clearly saying where we should have our focus. I remember when I was a teenager, I guess, a girl in my class used a phrase I'd never heard before. She said, oh, that person's so heavenly minded, they're no earthly good. And as I have kind of, thought about that over the years, I thought, it's also possible for the opposite to occur. And I think it's maybe more possible for the opposite to occur, to be so earthly minded that you're no heavenly good. That we're so focused on the things of earth that we forget the things of heaven. We forget the spiritual. And if there's one thing that we can know or should know as followers of Jesus Christ, by the way, we follow a Savior who said this world, right? I'm not a king of a kingdom here in this world. He said, I am a king, but my kingdom is not of this world. My kingdom is of a spiritual world, and he will rule the world, but he's the ruler of heaven, and he sits at the right hand of God the Father, and that's who he is. And so that's who he asked us to be as well. People who are in tune with the Spirit, who follow the Spirit, who are not so earthly minded that we're no heavenly good. If there's one thing we need to remember, because we do follow a Savior who is the King, not of this world, is that this world's not our home. This isn't our ultimate destination. We have our eyes on Jesus. We have our eyes on the eternal. And this world, as upsetting as it can be in its current state, there's going to be a new heaven and a new earth and a new king ruling over all. And that's where we should have our eyes. Just encourage you this week to not be so earthly minded that you're no heavenly good. Always remember that God's in control. God's in control. This world is not your home. You're just passing through. Have a great week.